Hey my friends, welcome back to the channel. Today's project, we're going to jump back on this 2011 KX250F, see if we can't figure out this idle issue. But before we get into all that craziness, I just want to give my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you who have supported me. All your kind words means a lot to me. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes. It's important to me. And a lot of you guys feel like you have more faith in me than I have in myself, and I really do appreciate it. And with that being said, let's jump back into this bike. If you guys remember this bike, and you should because it wasn't too long ago, we went all through this engine, and it actually runs pretty good. It's just we have a problem with the idle. She just won't idle down. If I turn the idle up a little bit so that it will idle, it revs way out. And I know these are supposed to rev kind of high, but where it was crazy high, and one notch down on the idle and she would just cut off. And we tested all the sensors as far as we could and everything looked real good. I didn't notice any leaks in the intake. I did get some suggestions from the comments as far as checking grounds and a couple other things. And I'm going to do that just to be 100% sure. I never checked the connection at the ECU or the CDI or the ECM or whatever you want to call it, the old computer box. I'm leaning more towards something to do with the throttle body of some sort. So what I ended up doing was picking up a complete known good unit off a known good running bike, and this thing has everything. This even came with the wiring harness to all the sensors, which is great because I can use my old harness and create a test harness with it, with pigtails coming off of it, so I can test things like that. But this has the throttle sensor on it. It has a new fuel line, which is great because the fuel line that was on this one was missing the clips. So in other words, somebody took these clips off and then just chucked them as far as they could and said, don't need them. And it also has the intake air pressure sensor, or the MAP sensor. So I guess first things first here is we'll pull this old throttle body back off, get this one bolted in, and see if it makes a difference. Some things you want to look at on these throttle bodies is these painted marks. So these are set from the factory, and then a line of paint is put on them, and this shows whether or not any of this stuff has been fooled with. This one here looks like it may have been fooled with, and what they say in the manual is that if any of this stuff has been messed with, you have to replace the throttle body because this is set from the factory. I'm not sure there's any way to actually get it back to where it's supposed to be, and that could potentially be the problem because the paint is no longer there on the nut. So I wouldn't assume that somebody messed with this. So if we look at our new throttle body, you can see this paint has not been touched at all on either of these. So there's a very good chance that that's where our problem lies. And this should be a direct bolt-in replacement. However, I'm going to clean inside of here pretty good. Make sure this is all like new. No sir, I don't like it. They gave me some new throttle cables, or at least the throttle cables that came with this are in better shape. Let's change them out. We got some frayed ends of sanity right there. I'm going to clean all our connections before we plug them in. Put some dielectric grease. That keeps water and dirt out. I got the new throttle body in, everything buttoned up. Just get this fuel tank back on, get this ready to go. You know, while I'm thinking about it, some of you guys out there in the comments impressed the heck out of me. You know, it really shows there's little subtle things that you pick up on, and it's really impressive. For example, when I was pulling this oil filter out on this, I noticed that the spring was missing. There's a spring that keeps the oil filter seated properly, and one of you guys pointed that out to me, and I had replaced it. However, I didn't do it on camera, and real quick to point out that that was missing. And that's a little subtle thing that happens real fast in the video, and I'm pretty impressed that you guys see this stuff and call it out. You know, when I'm editing things, I try to put as much as I can in, but you know, sometimes you miss things. But anywho, all right, tank's back on. Let's get this rear subframe on and get this exhaust on and give this thing a couple of kicks. All right, everything's back together. Let's give this thing a few kicks, see if she'll start, see if she'll idle. That's the main goal. Now, on these FI bikes, a little bit different starting procedure than a carbureted bike. These bikes don't have batteries, and a fuel pump runs off 12 volts. So you have to generate enough power to spin that fuel pump and pressurize the system. Now the non-battery bikes, the newer bikes are all battery, so they don't have this issue. But with this type of system, there's no storage for the power that's being generated by the stator. So what happens is they use this capacitor or condenser unit, and this stores power from the generator to power the pump and the rest of the system. So a normal starting procedure on an FI bike that's been sitting for a while is you just want to give this thing a couple of nice easy kicks straight through to pressurize the system, get a little power into the pump. Then you want to bring her up to TDC or top dead center. And what that is basically you push down on the Kickstarter until you feel resistance. That's going to generally be right at your top dead center. Now you're going to come all the way up to the top and give it a kick straight through. Now let's see if this kicks off right away or needs a few kicks. We'll see. Time for me to get a new stand. Just find our top dead center. Couple little adjustments here. She's definitely idling. This is much better than it was. However, I've got this adjuster absolutely all the way out as far as it can go. And it's still just a tick too low. We'd like to bring it up just a little bit. But again, just like last time, I mean, like I said, this is much better. Like last time, we're going to give it the benefit of the doubt. We'll warm it up with the choke on, the enrichment circuit. And then once she's warm, turn it off and see how she goes. Well, my initial excitement has quickly turned to dismay. it's doing pretty much the same thing again. Obviously, we've got a good wiring harness, a good throttle body, a good fuel injector, a good manifold pressure sensor, a good throttle position sensor. That is not our problem. I think at this point now, I am going to recheck my valve clearances to make sure that nothing tightened up from break-in. And we'll go from there. This intake here is less than the minimum specification. This is no good. It does have clearance. It's not zero, but I'm definitely going to adjust that. Put a little bit thinner shim in there. Well, both of the exhausts are in spec. This particular valve is too tight, and I'm going to have to go with the next size smaller shim to open that clearance up a little bit. Now, generally when you install new valves and shim them properly, once you run the bike for a little bit, you should go back in and check them, because as the valves seat, they're going to tighten up a little bit. And this is a good example of why you should shim on the higher side of the spectrum. So if your intake is 0.10 to 0.15 millimeter, shim it closer to 0.15, because with this type, you think as things wear, the gap will get larger. But in these particular cases here, it doesn't work that way. As the valves beat against the seats, they will tend to wear into the seat a little bit and potentially even bend the valve down a little bit, which will bring your clearances down between your valve stem and your camshaft tighter. So as things wear, the clearances get tighter and tighter. So again, we usually like to shim on the higher side, and everything is in spec except for this one particular valve. Not a big deal. We'll just go back in, re-shim that one, see if maybe that helps us out in any way, shape, or form. I got that valve lash issue taken care of. In the meantime, I did a little bit of research and bouncing off the forums and stuff like this. It seems that these things are really, really picky with their valve clearances. In fact, a lot of people are saying that they have to go wide with them. And, you know, I'm hoping that's kind of part of the issue. But I got it back together. Let's give it a few kicks and see if we're still in the same situation. And then we'll just take it right to the dump, you know. That's the only thing we can really do next. Overexcited like I did last time. It definitely sounds a lot better, and it started a lot easier too. It's definitely got a weird wonky kind of up and down idle, but that's much better. I mean, this thing actually is idling down and accelerating, not hanging. Let me put this thing together and take it for a quick rip around, see if it changes any. She seems to run pretty good, yeah. This thing's got a ton of power for a 250. I'm actually really impressed with it. Definitely learned something. The forums came through on this one and actually shim these things way on the high side. You can actually sort of hear them tapping a little bit, but apparently that's what you have to do with these 2011s. And that seems to fix my problem here. The idle's not 100% perfect, but at least it idles at this point now. She still wanders kind of up and down just a little bit. And I'm not sure if these things even learn like a car does, you know. Who knows? And of course, I want to thank you all for hanging in there, being patient. I had a couple other projects going on, and honestly didn't really even want to get involved with this thing. You know how it just aggravates you and you just want to put it off to the side, but sooner or later you're going to jump in and get it done. Well, she looks good, she runs good, and that's where we're going to end this video. Again, thank all you guys for all your support, your likes, your comments, your shares, and your subscriptions. It means a lot to me, and that's what kind of keeps me going doing this. So appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Whew. Glad this one's over.